Hello, namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The start of a new week and we are once again diving into a world on edge. Kicking off with the seismic shift in Washington, has President Donald Trump blinked in the US-China trade war? Why has he rolled back tariffs on technology products? Is this a win for Xi Jinping? What is the Chinese president up to? He's touring Southeast Asia as we speak. We will tell you why. Meanwhile, top banks and billionaires are sounding an alarm. Trump's policies could plunge the US into something worse than a recession. Markets are still feeling the heat, gold is soaring and investors are scurrying. Where should you put your money in these turbulent times? We will discuss that. Also in focus, what's the new rule in the US that says foreign nationals must register or face deportation? Why Trump has called the latest Russian strike on Ukraine a mistake? What is the story of the US teen charged with killing his parents in a chilling plot to assassinate the US president? What do satellite images reveal about North Korea's largest, most advanced warship? What is India's new laser weapon that puts the country in an elite club? And all about the booming panic industry that is selling doomsday bunkers and flammable moats. Are these the ultimate safe havens or just fear-driven fantasies? We'll discuss all of this. This and more coming up. The headlines first. Donald Trump hosts the president of El Salvador. The self-proclaimed world's coolest dictator is now a key ally of the US president, who has been sending immigrants to a notorious Salvadoran prison. Trump claims the deportees are gang members, but his administration has mistakenly deported a Maryland resident to El Salvador. Indian fugitive Mehul Choksi arrested in Belgium. The diamond merchant fled India in 2018. The Indian government has sent a request for Choksi's extradition. He is accused of defrauding the Punjab National Bank of more than $1 billion. His nephew Nirav Modi is also an accused in the case. He was arrested in the UK in 2019 and remains in custody there. Gabon's junta chief wins the presidential election. Provisional results give him 90% of the vote. In August 2023, the junta leader ended more than 5 decades of rule by the Bongo family, promising to return the Central African country to democratic rule. The Maldives attempts to phase out smoking, plans to make it illegal for anyone currently under 19 years to buy cigarettes. A proposed law will prohibit the sale of tobacco products to those born after January 2007. This would effectively prevent future generations from smoking. And pop star Katy Perry completes her foray into space on an all-woman flight. 5 others, including Jeff Bezos' fiancée, were part of the Blue Origin crew. The entire journey lasted around 11 minutes. This is the first all-woman space crew since Russia's Valentina Tereshkova's historic solo flight in 1963.
So, if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers.
Going to be announced very soon, and we'll be discussing it.
US President Donald Trump is backing down. His tariff war is unraveling, forcing him to retreat. The US has announced yet another exemption, and this time it is China that is getting relief. Chinese exports to the United States face a 145% tariff, but now a range of Chinese electronics are off the hook. This includes stuff like smartphones and laptops. They won't face the 145% import tax. Interestingly, the pullback was not announced by President Trump. It was done by the US Customs. They released an exemption notice, a notice stating which products were exempt from tariffs. And it came as great news for big tech. They can now breathe easy. Without this relief, prices of gadgets would have skyrocketed. Everything from memory chips and solar cells to semiconductors would have cost more. There were about 20 product categories, all targeted by Trump's tariffs. Their prices were set to surge. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia had raised concerns. In fact, Apple was resorting to extreme measures. They airlifted 1.5 million iPhones from India. Apple did it in record time to beat the tariffs, to make sure that the phones were shipped before the tariffs kicked in. We told you about this last week. These iPhones were made in India. Usually it takes 30 hours for customs to clear such consignments, 30 hours. But this one was fast-tracked. It was dispatched within 6 hours, all because Apple wanted to beat Trump's tariff deadline. But for the moment, they can relax. Washington has given some relief, even though it's temporary. The US president says no one can escape his tariffs. Let me quote. There was no exception. Nobody is getting off the hook. This is what he wrote on Truth Social. He reminded everyone that other duties on Chinese products still remain, like the 20% tariffs related to fentanyl. This was announced soon after Trump took office. And now he's planning a new set of tariffs, a different category altogether. Listen to this.
The tariffs will be in place in the not distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things. And that'll take place in the very near future.
The US president has ordered a national security investigation. It will focus on semiconductors and the entire electronic supply chain. Trump's Commerce Secretary has confirmed this. That's Howard Lutnick. He says new tariffs are coming in 2 months, and they will target high-end imports from China.
Remember, those products are going to be part of the semiconductor sectoral tariffs, which are coming. So all those products are going to come under semiconductors, and they're going to have a special focused type of tariff to make sure that those products get reshored. We need to have semiconductors, we need to have chips, and we need to have flat panels. We need to have these things made in America.
So Trump and his team are going out of their way to convince everyone that this is not a retreat. It is more like a reshuffle, that their policy direction remains the same, but it's amply clear what this move is about. The US is taking a strategic timeout, and it comes after Trump's U-turn last week, when he froze all the tariffs for 90 days, all but China. He said America's trade partners will face a blanket tariff of 10% for 3 months, nothing more than that, only 10% till July, but he did not extend this relief to China. On the contrary, he raised tariffs on China at least twice in 2 days. By the end of it, US tariffs on China stood at a whopping 145%. And why was China singled out? Because they chose to retaliate. They hit back at the US with tariffs of their own. So Trump said China was forcing his hand. It makes no sense, but that's what he said. And he raised tariffs to 145%. He also said that China wants a deal with him, but they don't know how to ask for it. That was last week. Now, suddenly, he's climbing down, basically relenting under pressure. Because Trump's tariffs crashed the markets. They caused losses worth trillions of dollars. Wall Street was up in arms. CEOs were predicting a recession, and investors were losing money. It took all of 8 days for Trump to shift course. The White House has tried to spin it as smart and strategic, but the world is not buying this spiel. America's credibility has taken a hit, investor confidence is falling, the dollar has tanked to a 6-month low, and Trump's utterances are keeping investors on edge. The president is playing hopscotch with the economy, jumping from one threat to another, only to stumble and retreat. So Trump is putting caveats on his trade war. The question is why? After all the bravado, why is he backpedaling now? Mainly because of two reasons. The first is America's dependency on China, and the second is public backlash. We look at both these factors. Electronics is the biggest category of US imports from China. Your smartphones, your laptops and computers, these make up 20% of the total imports from China. Imagine a 145% tariff on this trade. It would have made electronics unaffordable for Americans. Just consider the iPhone. The 16 Pro Max sells for $1,200. The tariffs would have increased that price by a lot to almost $2,150 per phone. And why is that? Because China assembles almost 90% of all phones. It is basically a monopoly. Same with computers. China makes 81% of laptops and personal computers. So if you tariff China, all of this becomes more expensive, a lot more expensive. American tech companies would have raised the price of their products. We're talking about a visible and sharp hike here, and Trump cannot afford that right now. Which is the second reason. Around 56% Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy. That's 7 points up from last month. Clearly, this is the tariff effect. The White House is trying to spin it as a masterstroke, but ordinary people are not buying it. They can see the wild swings in the stock market, they can see the public U-turns of their president, and they can also see prices rising. Perhaps this is what prompted Trump to exempt certain goods. He has not explained why he did it. He simply attributed the exemptions to obvious reasons.
10% floor, Mr. President. You think?
Pretty close, yeah, I would say.
Pretty close.
There could be a couple of exceptions for, obvious reasons, but I would say 10% is a floor.
Yeah.
Could we see more such exemptions? Well, it's certainly possible. Trump's exemptions only apply to the 145% rate. His fentanyl tariffs still apply on Chinese electronics, and that's around 20%. You won't see this impact immediately. Most companies will have stock lying around. For example, Apple has inventory for almost 6 weeks. But what happens after that? After that, prices will increase. And that is when Trump will face a reckoning. He was elected on the promise of lowering prices. If the opposite happens, expect a backlash. And that's just the start. The tariffs could hurt the economy beyond inflation. Top banks are predicting a recession in 2025, in this year. Billionaire Ray Dalio is predicting something worse than a recession. Now, Dalio, as you would know, is a hedge fund manager. He founded Bridgewater Associates in 1975. Today, it manages around $92 billion in assets. And Dalio feels something bad is coming, something worse than a recession, as he put it. What would that be? A breakdown of the current global order. He feels emerging powers will bring down the post-World War system, and this would create major conflicts. Basically, a breakdown in global relations. I know it sounds far-fetched, but Ray Dalio has a knack for this kind of things. He predicted the recession of 2008. And this time he says the US is very close to another one. All of this will build pressure on Donald Trump. His tariffs were supposed to shock the world into action, but that may not be possible anymore. For starters, the shock effect is almost gone. These exemptions show that Trump is also worried. He is concerned about the blowback on US companies and consumers. Rest assured, other countries will capitalize on this. Secondly, there's a lot of confusion. We are seeing conflicting messages from Washington. Last week, the White House was pushing for iPhones made in America. Listen to this.
But iPhones specifically, is that something that he thinks is the kind of technology that can move to the U.S.?
Absolutely. He believes we have the labor, we have the workforce, we have the resources to do it. And as you know, Apple has invested $500 billion here in the United States. So if Apple didn't think the United States could do it, they probably wouldn't have put up that big chunk of change.
Well, then why exempt tariffs on them? Why stick with Chinese-made iPhones? All this confusion will weaken Trump's position. It gives the impression that there is no method to this madness, that Trump is simply going with the flow. I'm afraid such a strategy does not qualify as the art of the deal. If you're confused, do not worry, you're not alone. The entire world is scratching its head. The US-China trade war is not for the faint of heart. Since February, it's been a roller coaster. Trump slaps on tariffs, China fires back, Trump doubles down, China hits harder, and so the cycle spun for 2 chaotic months. Trump expected China to panic. He wanted Xi Jinping to call him. But China did not call. They did not blink. And in the end, Trump had to fold.
Honestly, I'm very comfortable now, but I've always gotten along well with President Xi. We had a good relationship, very good. And I think something positive is going to come out of that.
Like I told you before, he's rolled back the tariffs on electronics, your smartphones and computers. These are major items that Beijing exports to the US. So does that mean it is advantage China? Did Xi Jinping win this first round? It sure looks that way. Beijing clearly had the upper hand here, but what happens next will be equally important. Will there be round 2? It's hard to predict with Trump. Although Xi Jinping has made his stance clear, he does not want this. He is working on alternatives. The Chinese president is touring Southeast Asia. He is in Vietnam as we speak. His next stops will be Malaysia and Cambodia. Before taking off for Hanoi, Xi Jinping wrote an editorial. Let me quote from what he said. Trade war and tariff war will produce no winner and protectionism will lead nowhere. He has a point, even though it's a bit rich coming from him. China has long weaponized trade, but now their president says trade wars have no winners, and China does not want to escalate it further. That's what Xi Jinping is saying. But look closer, and there's a much bigger message at play. President Trump and the US have thrown the world into a spin. Markets are tanking, allies are scrambling, deals are being chased, and the result is global uncertainty. And in the middle of the storm, China sees an opening. While America looks erratic, China wants to look responsible. It wants to project itself as the reliable power. Xi Jinping is promising stability and investments. And that's what the Southeast Asia tour is all about. He's already in Vietnam, like I said. It is China's biggest trade partner in the region. Xi wants to elevate those ties. They're expected to sign a total of 40 agreements. And from there, it's a quick flight to Malaysia. It is the Chinese president's first visit to the country since 2013. Now, Beijing is Malaysia's largest trading partner, so the focus here again will be on trade, on how Malaysian companies can get better access to China. From there, Xi will go to Cambodia. Again, the timing is worth noting. The Chinese president will be in Cambodia on the 17th of April. That's the week of the Khmer New Year. Usually, everything is shut during this time. Offices and schools are closed. It's a national holiday. But this time, Phnom Penh is making an exception. It is rolling out the red carpet for the Chinese president. And that tells you everything. Southeast Asia is rattled by this trade war and Trump's threat of higher tariffs. So it is turning to China, which, by the way, is not a safe option either. A, because it's China, it is the opposite of reliable. And B, siding with China could earn them Trump's wrath, aka more tariffs. And this is something that Vietnam is especially worried about. It is wary of looking like China's backdoor, of being used to ship Chinese goods. That's one point of concern. There's also the fear of cheap Chinese goods. They could flood these markets and kill local players. So it's a delicate balance for Southeast Asia. As for Xi Jinping, he may have won this round, but the game is far from over. The US still holds the most powerful weapon in this trade war: unpredictability. Speaking of unpredictability, it often means bad news for investors. Policies keep changing, markets keep swinging, and every move becomes riskier. So what should you do at a time like this? Where should you put your money? A lot of people are turning to gold. It's a time-tested strategy during periods of uncertainty because gold is a safe haven. When the economy is dull, investors flock to gold. And in the process, they drive up its price. Now look at the price of gold. Look at how it has changed since January. 78,000 rupees for 10 grams at the start of this year, 78,000, and now it is more than 96,000 rupees for 10 grams. Stocks have fallen during this time, but gold prices have hit an all-time high. So should you join the buying spree? It's always good to diversify your portfolio. As for returns, that depends on a lot of things. If the trade uncertainty rises, so will gold prices. They will also go up with uncertainty. But if Trump and China reach a deal, then the rally in gold will likely end. So you could say that gold is hostage to this trade war. Another option is stocks. Now, before you go into shock, let me explain why. I'm not talking about wild bets on the market index. Those will remain volatile for a while. I'm talking about calculated long-term investments. Several sectors are insulated from this chaos. Your job is to pick the right ones. For example, companies linked to, say, railway infrastructure, no tariff disruptions, massive state support, and a permanently growing market. It's a safe bet during such times. During a bull run, you have more room to make mistakes, but right now you don't. So put science over your instincts. Look at the financial health of companies. Look at how much debt they have. Look at their exposure to the global market. Only then should you make your bets. Also, look out for companies trading at discounts. Maybe you've been eyeing a stock for quite some time now. You've done your due diligence as well, but the price was always too high. Well, now's your chance. Most stocks have fallen in the last 3 months. So if you can, scoop up those solid companies. I know it's hard to put these tactics to use, especially when your hard-earned money is at stake. But the key is to think long-term. Do not panic, do your homework, and turn this chaos into an opportunity. A lot of you may find this too risky. You may prefer safer bets, like a bank deposit. But those are on the chopping board. India's central bank recently cut lending rates, and since then, many banks have slashed interest on their deposits. SBI has reduced rates by 10 basis points, Bank of India by up to 25 basis points, HDFC also by 25 basis points, and Yes Bank again by 25 basis points. They have cut lending rates. They have cut interest rates. So if you are planning on saving, these cuts will affect you. Your returns will basically be less. Does that mean that you should ditch deposits? Absolutely not. An ideal portfolio is diversified. It will have a bit of everything: bonds, stocks, gold, currency deposits, all of it. The idea is to not put all your eggs in one basket. This advice is extremely important right now because a diversified portfolio will shield you from the volatility. Just consider the last 20 days. If you had money in stocks, chances are you lost some of it. But if you had gold, you must have gained money. So one gain covers off the other loss. It gives you confidence to tide over the period of chaos, which is why a diverse portfolio is key. I won't go into the specifics of what to buy or sell. I'll leave that to your financial advisor, but I will give you 2 broad suggestions. Number 1 is to obviously diversify. Like I said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And number 2, be focused and patient. Investment is always a long game. Do not be flustered by 1 or 2 volatile months. Instead, make calculated moves. There is always an opportunity to make money. Your job is to spot it and wait for it. Now let's talk about immigration. Just like tariffs, it's a policy priority for the Trump administration. They've launched one of their harshest crackdowns yet. They've introduced new rules for all foreign nationals. They must register with the government. If you're staying for more than 30 days in the United States, it applies to you. Residents with valid visas, green card holders, even children, everyone must register. If they don't, they may face fines, jail, or even deportation. Even legal immigrants must carry documents at all times. Clearly, the administration is serious about enforcing all this, and there's nothing wrong in going after illegal immigrants. But these moves are a sweeping dragnet. They put all immigrants at risk, not just the undocumented ones. And they're sending shockwaves through communities across America. Here's a report.
Donald Trump's fight against illegal immigration has taken an ugly turn. The US government has introduced new rules for foreign nationals. They mandate every one of them must now register with the government if they plan to live in the United States for more than 30 days. What if they don't comply? The penalties are harsh, including jail and even deportation. No one has been spared. The new rules apply to everyone: visitors with valid visas, green card holders, even students and children. The directive is based on a World War II era law. Violators face up to $5,000 in fines or 30 days in jail. In serious cases, violators could face a lifetime ban from entering the United States again. Children must register by their 14th birthday. They must also provide fingerprints. New arrivals after the 11th of April have just 30 days to comply. This is not just a crackdown on illegal immigration, it's a crackdown on all immigrants. Even legal residents will live under threat now. They must carry proof of legal status at all times. One missed step and they risk being treated like criminals. Civil rights groups tried to stop these new rules, but a judge dismissed the challenge. He said the groups lacked standing. So the policy now stands, and the consequences are unfolding fast. International students need to follow every single visa rule to the letter. Jobless H-1B visa holders risk being labelled unlawful after their grace period ends. And if they delay or make any mistake, they could end up being deported.
4, 5, 6.
So what's the way out? US immigration officials are encouraging self-deportation, and they're going the extra mile with this. They're offering immigrants their choice of flights. Some may even get help with their ticket. Those waiting to hear back on their status might be compelled to take this route because the punishment can be brutal. Legal experts argue that the policy is overboard, unconstitutional, and dangerous. It treats millions of legal residents like suspects, and it opens the door to racial profiling and abuse. The Trump administration, however, has defended the move. They call it enforcement. They call it necessary. But this is neither. These rules are an overreach, a policy built on fear, not facts. Enforcing immigration laws is fair, but turning every immigrant into a target is not. It's not security, it's not reform, it's chaos disguised as control.
It was Palm Sunday in Ukraine. People gathered with crosses and palm branches. The mood was peaceful until 2 missiles struck the city of Sumy. 34 people were killed, including 2 children. 117 others were wounded. It was the deadliest attack of this year.
The number of killed and wounded on the street, in public transport, in cars that were passing by at the moment, proves that it was a terrorist attack solely against civilian population. The same was in Kryvyi. Enemy's media resources made statements that it was an attack on some made-up military to justify that horrible attack.
But the attacks did not stop there. The Ukrainian capital, Kiev, was also hit by strikes. 1 missile struck the warehouse of an Indian pharmaceutical company. It is called Kusum. It is one of the largest pharma firms in Ukraine. It came under attack. Ukrainian President Zelensky also slammed Moscow. He called them, and I quote, filthy scum. He also called for a global response, saying that only pressure can stop attacks like these.
Only pressure, only decisive action can change this. Every Russian ballistic missile, every cruise missile, every Russian Shahid, every guided bomb strike not only our people, not only our communities, but also diplomacy and the political efforts of everyone who is truly trying to bring this to an end.
European leaders rushed to back him. French President Macron said Russia was choosing to continue the war. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he was appalled, and Poland took a dig at Russia. But the United States did not join them. It took a completely different position. Listen to this.
Do you have a reaction to Russia's Palm Sunday attack?
Well, I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake, but I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started, is an abuse of power. This country would have never allowed that war to have started if I were president.
So Trump was asked about the attack. He called it terrible, but he also called it a mistake. Was it a mistake by Russia? How was this mistake made? He was asked these questions again, and this is what the US president said.
When you say they made a mistake in the attack, you said they made a mistake. You were told they made a mistake. Do you mean it was unintentional?
They made a mistake. I believe it was. Look, you're going to ask them. This is Biden's war. This is not my war.
They made a mistake. You got to ask them. That's what he said. Interestingly, on Friday, his envoy was in Russia. I'm talking about Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy to West Asia, who happens to be at the forefront of the engagement with Russia. He was in St. Petersburg, where he met Russian President Vladimir Putin. On the agenda was a ceasefire. The meeting lasted for 4.5 hours. The US did not comment on the outcome. Now, fun fact, Trump has a special envoy to Ukraine. His name is Keith Kellogg. The Russians do not like him, so it is Witkoff who talks to them. Anyway, Kellogg made a suggestion over the weekend. He said Ukraine can be partitioned like Germany. What does that mean? After the Second World War, Germany was split into two. East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Union. West Germany was controlled by the Allied powers, the US, the UK, and France. So Kellogg suggested a similar arrangement for Ukraine. One side controlled by Russia, the other side controlled by Britain and France, British and French troops rather. Of course, the idea did not go down too well, neither with Ukraine nor with Europe. Zelensky had just one appeal for US President Trump: visit Ukraine to see the devastation. We don't know if Trump will take it up, but there is one leader who's rushing to support Ukraine, and that is Friedrich Merz. He is Germany's incoming chancellor. He called the recent attacks by Russia a war crime. He believes that Ukraine needs help and that Germany can provide it. How? In the form of Taurus missiles. These are advanced air-to-surface cruise missiles. They have an intelligent warhead system, which means that they can be used for precise targets, like your bunkers or bridges. Now, Kiev has been asking Germany for these missiles for quite some time now, but Berlin has been hesitant. And that's because of two reasons. One, Taurus missiles are long range. They have a range of over 500 kilometers. Germany was worried that Kiev would use these missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Concern number two, Germany would get dragged into the war. To use the Taurus missiles, Ukraine would need German support, and Berlin was wary of getting involved. But now, Merz is willing to do it. On one condition, of course. It will be in coordination with European allies. Basically, Germany won't go in alone. But will these missiles really help Ukraine? Militarily, yes. Taurus can go where most Ukrainian missiles cannot. They can take down Russian targets. But here's the question that no one wants to ask at this point. Is this too little too late? Ukraine has been asking for it for a year now. It could have slowed the Russian offensive, but it's getting the missiles only now, and that too amid the ceasefire talks. Also, how do you strike a deal while striking deep inside enemy territory? The Taurus missiles may give Kiev a strategic edge for a while, but they would also push Moscow further away from the table. And that is the biggest dilemma right now. Will peace come through diplomacy, or will it come through deterrence? It's a choice that Ukraine and its Western allies must make sooner rather than later. Our next story tonight is about a high school student from Wisconsin. Earlier this year, he allegedly killed both his parents. And now this case has gotten the FBI involved. That's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They are probing the case because killing his parents was only half the plan. According to fresh police reports, this teen fatally shot his parents so that he could get enough money and autonomy to kill the US President Donald Trump and then overthrow his government. This is not a film story. It happened in Wisconsin, USA. Here's more.
This is Nikita Kasab, a 17-year-old from Wisconsin. When he failed to attend school for 2 weeks, local officials visited his home. And that's when they found the bodies of his parents. Then one thing led to another. The teenager was arrested last month. The Federal Bureau of Investigation got involved, and now the missing links have emerged. The police believe that Kasab killed his mother and father on February 11th. He allegedly shot them. Both were found dead from gunshots more than 2 weeks later on February 28th. But the suspect was not at home and the parents' car was missing. That evening, the officers found the vehicle with the suspect driving it. And that's not all that was discovered. There was also $14,000 in cash in the car, more than $14,000 worth of jewelry, and a .357 Magnum revolver that was purchased by the high schooler. In Wisconsin itself, the teen faces 9 felony charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of hiding a corpse. But that's not what the FBI is investigating. They're looking at 3 additional charges: presidential assassination, conspiracy, and use of weapons of mass destruction. Confused? Well, according to the police, the fatal shootings were part of a larger plan. The teenager killed his parents in an attempt to obtain the money and autonomy that he thought he needed to kill the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and then overthrow his government. The teen identified with a right-wing terrorist network called the Order of 9 Angels. This is a network of neo-Nazis who have racially motivated extremist views. The police found images and praise of Adolf Hitler on Kasab's phone, along with instructions on how to make bombs and a self-described manifesto which talked about assassinating the president. Why? Apparently, the teen believed that this would foment a political revolution in the United States, and he thought he could get away with it. The alleged double murder of his parents was an effort to obtain the money to both make the attack happen and then to run away. Authorities say that the teen paid for a drone and explosives with the money he stole and had plans to escape to Ukraine. Now, this incident may surprise you for more reasons than one. Since the spike during the pandemic era, violent crime has actually seen a downward trend across the United States. But a number of cities are reporting a new rise in crime, that is, among the youth. In many cases, authorities claim that social media and smartphone use play a key role. And this applies to cases outside the United States as well. 60% of teenagers have reported seeing real-life violence on social media platforms. Plus, organized gangs have tapped these platforms. They are grooming young adults, introducing them to violence, illicit weapons, and drug markets. Social media has also become a hub for neo-Nazis, especially Instagram. These groups are recruiting young people and spreading propaganda, and they exploit all kinds of easy technology to do this, from gaming to social media voice chats and online movie clubs. As children become increasingly isolated, social media algorithms are exploiting their vulnerabilities. While there's no singular culprit in this broad cultural issue, the lines between right and wrong have been blurred by vastly unregulated violent and hateful content on the internet. And there's no question that social media is making an already grim situation worse.
Our next story is from North Korea, a hermit kingdom under the iron grip of Kim Jong-un. They've been on an unboxing spree, revealing a new weapon almost every month. So why should April be any different? This time it is a new warship, North Korea's largest one yet. We have satellite images. They show the sheer size of the missile frigate. It is estimated to be 140 meters long. Let me give you some perspective. The world's largest frigate is about 151 meters in length. What North Korea is building would be 10 meters short of that. So this ship is going to be massive, and nothing like the ones that North Korea has operated till now. Clearly, this is not just a frigate, it is a statement. But to whom? And at what cost? Here's what we know so far. The warship is being built at the Nampo shipyard. That's 60 kilometers south of Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. The ship is massive, 140 meters long. We already told you about that. But what does it mean? What does a bigger ship mean? It means bigger weapons. Think missiles, torpedoes, and artillery guns. Experts say the ship will have vertical missile silos, which means it can carry ballistic missiles. Now remember, North Korea tested a hypersonic ballistic missile this year in the month of January. These missiles are almost impossible to shoot down. For now, North Korea can only launch them from land. Kim Jong-un wants to change that and cue North Korea's largest warship. Experts say this ship could carry hypersonic ballistic missiles. So how is Kim Jong-un going to pull this off? Enter Russia. North Korea's closest allies. Relations have deepened since last year. Russian President Putin met Kim Jong-un. This happened in June 2024. Putin traveled to North Korea after a gap of 24 years. The two leaders then signed a partnership agreement. They agreed to mutual defense commitments. Basically, Russia and North Korea will defend each other in war. Pyongyang is already playing its part. Thousands of North Korean troops are fighting on behalf of Russia. And what is Kim getting in return? Technology, like this latest warship. Reports say the frigate has Moscow's fingerprints all over it, and this has become a trend. Last month, North Korea revealed AI-powered suicide drones. It happened in Kim Jong-un's presence. Experts say the drones were Russian copies. Even South Korea suspects this.
The unveiled airborne early warning aircraft today by North Korea still requires further evaluation in terms of its operational effectiveness and utility. We believe that the internal devices and components may have connections to Russia, and the model itself is an upgraded version of the one that North Korea previously owned.
So North Korea is giving its troops to Russia. In return, they're getting technology. This is fueling Kim Jong-un's war ambitions. North Korea continues to modernize. Missiles, drones, warships, you name it. Kim Jong-un is clearly preparing for something. Where does that leave South Korea? Definitely closer to the US and Japan. Seoul and Tokyo will look to bolster defenses, which means buying more weapons from Washington. So basically, the entire region is staring at an arms race. And the timing is important. The US is widening its Indo-Pacific footprint. A new war command is coming up in Japan. We've told you about this on this show. It is part of Donald Trump's strategy against China. But it also caters to North Korea. The US wants more troops and bases in Japan for two reasons. One, China's increasing military drills around Taiwan. And two, North Korea's rapid military expansion. Not to mention the frequent ballistic missile tests and the unveiling of all these new weapons. And now North Korea is building its largest warship. All of this is happening despite dozens of sanctions, which raises the obvious question, what is coming next? Will it be a nuclear submarine or an aircraft carrier? Kim Jong-un's priority is more weapons, but in a country where millions are starving, this largest warship is nothing more than a vanity project. Picture this, a swarm of drones buzzing towards Indian skies, then a flash of light, precise, silent and deadly. In seconds, the drones are shot down. This is not an idea from a fictional thriller. This is India's new reality. India has successfully test-fired a homegrown laser weapon. The laser beam burst the targets into flames, and all of this happened with pinpoint accuracy. India is now part of an elite club. Only the US, Russia and China have tested such a weapon. Our next report has more.
On the 13th of April, India entered an elite club of nations for the first time ever. India showcased its futuristic warfare capabilities. It fired a directed energy weapon. In short, a laser weapon. The test was undertaken in the state of Andhra Pradesh. The Defense Research and Development Organization, or DRDO, conducted the test. Here's how it went down. DRDO officials brought out the laser weapon to the testing field. And then they launched the targets. First, a single drone was shot down. Then a swarm of drones were brought down, and all of this happened in the blink of an eye. You blink, you miss, but the laser doesn't. The weapon that was showcased is a 30-kilowatt directed energy weapon. It is developed and designed by the DRDO and is completely made in India. It is basically a laser with multiple cameras and sensors. The sensors and cameras first detect a target. This could be a single drone or a swarm of drones. Then the weapon fires quick bursts of light energy or lasers to cut through any target, causing them to burst into flames. India has now entered an elite group of nations. Only the United States, China, and Russia are known to use lasers to neutralize aerial threats. India is now the fourth, and this is just the beginning. The DRDO is planning on making a much larger laser weapon, which will also be put on warships and aircraft. And DRDO officials say it will be India's Star Wars-like capability.
We are also working on other high-energy systems like high-energy microwaves, electromagnetic pulse. So we are working on several technologies which will give us the Star Wars capability.
So why is this a big deal? Because drones have become the go-to weapons of choice. They dominate the modern-day battlefield. They are cheap, reliable, agile, and deadly. But defending against drones remains a challenge. Militaries would often resort to anti-drone systems. These are large weapons that cost at least a few $1,000s. They use high frequencies and microwaves to bring down drones, and they have something called as the cool-off period, which means that after some time the anti-drone systems need a break. That is not the case with laser weapons. Even though a laser is a concentration of extreme energy, the system itself uses less energy to fire lasers compared to other anti-drone systems. So lasers can be fired at multiple targets and still not be at the risk of overheating. India now has an effective solution to combating drones. That is bad news for its neighbors, particularly Pakistan. In recent months, drone incursions in India's border regions have increased, but deploying multiple jammers and anti-drone systems remains a challenge for Indian armed forces. So the laser weapon system is the answer and a big boost to India's defense arsenal.
And now the perfect story for a Monday. When I say doomsday bunker, what do you picture? Probably an underground survival shelter with flashlights and canned food. But that is so basic. Doomsday prep is a big business in today's world, and it is growing rapidly. And it offers everything from escape tunnels to bunkers with AI technology and flammable moats. The demand for these apocalyptic bunkers is so high that their air filtration systems have become scarce. Now, to give you an idea, they cost up to $10,000. So what's behind this bunker fever? Mostly billionaires. They're not happy with your run-of-the-mill panic rooms. So they're building underground tunnels connecting bunkers to their homes. And they don't just have survival food and first aid boxes. These bunkers come with parking spaces, gyms, home theaters, and greenhouses. Many boast of secret panels as well. Because who doesn't like a dinner party tour for a house straight out of a Bond movie? According to reports, some panic houses come with secret panels that lead to a shooting range or a moving bookcase that hides crucial supplies. If you think this is a bit much, know that there are doomsday homes with a phone booth where if a code is entered on its keypad, the glass windows turn opaque and a black wall opens to reveal a basement complex. But sometimes the doomsday shebang is not enough in itself. The rich are also spending on extreme forms of protection, like hiring Navy SEALs to protect their compounds. Some luxury bunkers in the US come with their own moats, but not the old school kind. These moats function like a giant microwave that can be lit on fire. Of course, the more extreme the fortification, the higher the cost. Most projects start at $10 million and regularly exceed $100 million. After all, preparing for the apocalypse does not come cheap, but many are willing to make the investment, especially in the United States. Over the last year, Americans have spent about $11 billion collectively. This mostly includes the rich and famous, like Mark Zuckerberg, who is reportedly building a 5,000 square feet underground shelter in Hawaii with a price tag of more than $270 million, or what Zuckerberg calls a little shelter, a hurricane shelter, whatever. Whatever indeed. But he is hardly the only mogul enamored by bunkers. Former PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel has tried and failed to build one in New Zealand. Former Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates reportedly has underground bunkers in all his homes. Apparently, Kim Kardashian and Tom Cruise have gone bunker shopping too. And this craze is not limited to the United States. Reports say they have takers in European countries too, like Germany and the Czech Republic, where old missile silos are converted into bunkers with natural light imitating technology. So the wealthy can feel right at home. That said, the rich do not have a monopoly over panic. Across Europe and the US, there are down-market customers preparing for doomsday. So companies are jumping on the trend in this case too, and they're designing smaller, affordable panic rooms or even installations in people's homes like secret gun closets. Amid this doom boom, the market for panic rooms is set to exceed $1 billion again by 2030. So here's the question. What is behind this panic rush? Experts say there are many reasons. The bunker craze was accelerated by the Wuhan virus pandemic, but a range of fears have fueled the fire, from fears of a nuclear war to cyber attacks to financial collapse and civil unrest. So people are leveling up to protect themselves. And those who can afford to are going one step ahead and panic buying into the so-called panic industry. It's league cricket season in this part of the world. I'm sure you know the IPL is underway, but guess what? Pakistan's cricket league it also began this Friday. It's also on. One of the first matches was played between Multan and Karachi. The team from Karachi ended up chasing 235 runs in just 19 overs, all thanks to English batter James Vince. After the match, a special gift was awaiting him. Not a cash prize, not a medal, not a car or sports bike. James Vince got a hairdryer from his franchise. You have to see this.
मैं गरीब हूँ। मेरे मम्मी पापा मुझे गरीब जन्म दिए। हाँ।
मुझे एक बर्फ का गोला खिलाओ ना।
फिर से आ गए रे बाबा, इधर जहर खाने का पैसा नहीं है, तू जा रे।
Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Hundreds celebrate Palm Sunday in Jerusalem amid the war. Water fights take over the streets of Bangkok as Thailand marks the Songkran festival. And a rare blue Golconda diamond weighing 32 carats may fetch around $50 million in an auction. That is around 430 crore rupees. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1988, the Soviet Union agreed to withdraw from Afghanistan after 9 years. Their aim was to establish a pro-Soviet regime in Kabul, but the Soviet forces faced fierce resistance from the Afghan Mujahideen fighters who were covertly armed by the US, Pakistan and others. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India, what we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly.
Bluntly, Iran, maybe Russia too.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, cooperation.
Not over 50%.
Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.